You've already learned that since 1867, rules governing the nomenclature of naturally occurring plants have been published in the International Code of Nomenclature for Algae, Fungi, and Plants. And I'm going to run through some of those rules now that apply to naming a new plant. One of the first rules is the rule of priority. So back in 1867, when the botanists got together in Paris to discuss the new rules for naming plants, they decided that the plant names published by Linnaeus in his Species Plantarum would be adopted as the official starting point. One of the new rules they came up with was this rule of priority. This meant that the accepted name of a plant would be the first one that was applied. For example, let's say that one person discovered a plant in 1890 and called it by one name, and then somebody else rediscovered it 20 years later and gave it another name. When it's finally realized that the two plants are actually the same species, the rule of priority states that the first name that was published is the one that's retained, and that becomes what's known as the accepted name for that species. The rejected name is referred to as a synonym. In the photo you can see the leaves and seeds of Ginkgo Biloba, which was named by Linnaeus in 1771. 26 years later, the English botanist James Smith renamed it as Salisburia adiantifolia. Although this new name was quite widely adopted by the nursery trade at that time, the rule of priority states that this name isn't valid and that the accepted name is the one first published, Ginkgo Biloba. If you discover a plant in the wild that's new to science, you have the privilege of naming it. You can give the plant any name you want, but it has to be Latinized and follow the grammatical rules of botanical Latin, which are very similar to classical Latin. In addition, your name as the person to first publish the plant's description is recognized as part of the full plant name when it's written out in its entirety. For example, in 1992, a previously unknown California native shrub was found in Shasta County. It was identified as belonging to the existing genus Neviusea and was given the specific epithet Cliftonii to honor one of its four discoverers, G.L. Clifton. If we were to write out the name of this shrub in its entirety, we would write Neviusea Cliftonii, followed by Shevock, Erta, and D.W. Taylor. The names appearing after the species name acknowledge the people who first published a description of the plant, the three California botanists, James Shevock, Barbara Erta, and Dean Taylor. A plant name is usually only written out in its entirety like this in scientific papers and botanical literature, but it's something you may come across in your research, so it's important for you to know why these names appear and what they refer to. Linnaeus named and described so many plants that usually only his initial L appears after the Latinized binomial. In order for the name of a new-to-science plant to be recognized, you have to publish a complete description of the plant in English in a peer-reviewed journal. On the right, you can see the first page of the description of Neviusea Cliftonii that was submitted to the journal Novon that's published by the Missouri Botanical Garden, one of the world's leading botanical institutions. Novon is a quarterly, peer-reviewed botanical journal that focuses on the publication of articles establishing new nomenclature for vascular plants and bryophytes. The last step in officially describing a plant that's new to science is depositing an annotated specimen of the plant in a publicly accessible herbarium. This herbarium specimen is referred to as the type specimen. Local herbariums around here that would serve this purpose include the Norris Center at UCSC and the Jepson Herbarium at UC Berkeley. Herbarium specimens serve as reference points for botanical nomenclature and research and can last for hundreds of years when they're stored correctly. The photo on the right shows an annotated herbarium specimen of a lavender species that I saw in 2017 at the Royal Horticultural Society in England. This herbarium specimen was created in 1731, so it was 286 years old when I saw it. You can see that additional notations have been added over the years to this record since it was originally created. Most herbariums today are working on digitizing their collections in order to safeguard the valuable information and provide greater access to them. Preserving the original plant material is still essential, though, because it gives researchers access to valuable DNA material. So those are the steps involved in naming a plant that's new to science. Head back to Canvas now to continue with this module.